for you to get together in a meeting without oversight, without reporting for oversight. Or, there's no other reason for you to discuss this budget as long as those fines, because they're daily, are upon our necks. And so I just am questioning the whole efficacy, not only of the discussion, but calling this meeting without discussing the tigers in the room. The tiger of data is going to take $10,000 away from us.
Alex,
it is not, wait, just one
no, I didn't mean to interrupt. Paul, just continue.
Okay. It is not your assets that they are going to remove from this town. It is all of our assets. You are removing $20 a day.
Do you mind if I?
$20 an hour from this town, from everybody in this town. That is what is happening come June 1st. I don't see how you can talk about a budget when that.
Alex, do you mind if I ask you one question? I just want a point of clarification from you, if that's okay. Does this have to do with the housing element? Is that what you're talking about?
The vote that three of you made on March 25th to not move the affordable housing element forward in Blue Lake has led directly to the fines the state of California are levying against us. And I just don't see how any other business can be conducted sensibly until that $10,000 a day withdrawal from our assets is either removed or factored into everything. I mean, I just don't see it. I see you evading that like you think it's going to go away, like you think it wouldn't happen back on March 25th, because you knew it was possible.
Hey, Alex, I think we're probably at 3 minutes. If it's okay, do you mind if we? I'll go ahead and start a timer, if that's okay with you. We started off.
I'm finished on that issue.
Okay.
So my question is, and you don't have to answer it, but that's the question. How can this budget discussion take place without discussing the damn fine?
Great. Thank you. I will set up the timer now. Sorry, 1 second. All right, yes, Adeline, go ahead.
Good morning. Most of you know I'm not a morning person, so here I am. I opened my email this morning, and here's what I see on the front page of the Times-Standard. Blue Lake gets a warning from the state, again. The latest letter sent to the city of Blue Lake from state housing officials have again asked for an update on Blue Lake's housing plan and warned a failure to update plans could mean stiff penalties. On April 30th, a letter from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, told the city it needed to see a new timeline of how Blue Lake plans to get into compliance with a state housing law no later than May 30th, 2025. That's the front page of today's Times-Standard. So I tell you, do your job. Don't micromanage Blue Lake. We have a city management form of government. You're the visionaries. You tell staff to follow through with your visions, and they will, and they do. And I've seen it happen since I was mayor. By the way, let's not even think about firing Manager Maker. Alex, Bobby, Carl, and I were recently in Old Crow's meeting, and they were overwhelmingly in favor of keeping our wonderful Manager Maker. One of the Old Crows even started tearing up, talking about possibly losing Andy. So don't even think about that in lieu of the 5-page evaluation that you've given her. And thank you for giving her a $10,000 raise. But to reevaluate her in July, don't even think about it. You will have this place packed with people.
Great. Thank you. That was. Yes, Bobby, do you mind if I set the timer here 1 second? I apologize. I've got to restart it.
I'm usually terse.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if, under your issue of correspondence, you plan to address the letter from the state. Can you answer that, yes or no?
In this meeting,
Yes.
not at this time, I don't believe. No, that,
We
I would.
can't answer your question is what he's saying.
Why are you
This is-
interrupting everybody? Are you the boss lady? You're the mayor pro tem, he's the mayor. Respect that.
Bobby, sorry. So, I don't believe we're going to be addressing that today. It's a meeting solely based upon the budget review at this time.
Correspondence is on the agenda, that's why I asked.
Okay. I don't think we're going to be addressing that in correspondence.
Incredible, isn't it? Isn't it incredible? This is dysfunction of an incredible level.
Can we move forward?
We
with
are, yeah.
Timeliness.
Without comments? No, I'm gonna be commenting.
Great.
That was it. That was public comment.
Bobby,
Thank
I
you
just
for
want to make
helping.
sure are you
Thank
done?
you for your
Why,
comment.
you kept interrupting.
Elise, please
me.
stop.
Excuse me.
Elise, I need you to stop.
Yes, I'm finished.
Thank you. Do we have any further comment from the public? Great. All right. Excuse me one moment here. We are moving on to item number 5, fiscal year 2025-2026 budget report workshop and discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Scafani, you had brought this item forward, and I think we designated you as leading the discussion.
Okay.
So I'll let you
So-
begin the discussion.
Well, so what I suggested we all have, and I'm afraid that some of the documents I requested were misunderstood, so some of it's not here, but the important stuff is. So we have 2 budgets. We have our current year budget, we have our last year's budget. And then we have a budget from 17-18. And the 17-18 budget has different presentation and different detail in it, so I thought that would be helpful for comparisons. This is just a really basic, this is, let's look at the budget, let's try to understand what it's saying to us, look at, try to answer some questions about how things are presented and what it means, and kind of go from there. So I'm assuming that everybody's had a chance to look at the budget in general before today, right? So, so we can start at the beginning and just go page by page.
Sure.
Or
Of which one?
we can, it doesn't matter. We can pick last year's budget and start at the beginning, or the one before.
Yeah, just,
What would you guys like to do?
we'll just go, I guess, sequentially, chronological order.
Okay.
I mean, I guess my concerns with starting with this 2017, 2018 is that there are different fund numbers that aren't relevant to the current budget. The most current one is in front of us. And-
So yeah, why don't we start?
I don't-
Start at the new stuff and go backwards.
Okay, sure. And-
Because, that just, anyway, we can see what our numbers look like, and go back.
Just so the public is aware, you guys can interact during this meeting as well. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So, there's the narrative, pages at the beginning, which are pretty basic.
Which I think are very, very helpful, actually. They kind of lay down the groundwork for what our roles are and then identify each independent fund number. But I feel like it's very, very nice to have an explanation of every fund number and every, and the roles of each person with regard to, mayor and city council and, overall general fund departments.
Right, it's absolutely essential to have the basics, to build from. Was there anything in there that you wanted to share specifically or read out loud?
I think, no, not at this time.
Does anybody have any questions about some of those, basic parts?
Maybe when I get a moment to look through it.
Okay.
Thanks.
There's some printed copies here if anybody's interested. Yeah. We're kinda, I think the front of each of these is the same.
Elise, did you provide this, the 2023-2024 budget?
Yeah.
Copies and all this material?
The city, I asked
Oh,
Andy to
that's
print that out so that we would have it in front of us.
I'm just asking if you're familiar with this one specific question for 2023-2024. Rather than trying to peruse all of it, do we have any capital reserve designated within these budgets?
I don't believe we have any specific capital reserve designated. We have capital reserve, well, we have capital improvement funds,
Right, this is different.
but
This-
capital reserve, sorry, can't answer that one.
I wasn't here for the last couple of, obviously brand new, but looking back at minutes, there were some opportunities to adopt the budget, obviously over the last couple of years. Were there concerns specifically that you identified in those presentations that we would want to like prioritize to evaluate? Were there any discrepancies or red flags on any of the audit reports that we've received?
The audit reports, have been, okay. There's been some concerns, and material weaknesses identified in the audit reports, which have to do with timing and access to the information that the auditors need, which, they've stated just made their process longer and more expensive.
But at the end of the day, with their evaluation
At
and
the end
their
of the day, they
assessment,
say that they don't find problems,
okay,
material problems.
okay.
So yeah, I feel like the auditors are doing a job, different than the job that we're tasked with the budget. I mean, they're looking for problems and misstatements and issues with record keeping, whereas we're looking at how we spend money and deciding how we wanna spend money, what our resources are and how we allocate. So it's two different jobs, really, two very different,
Sure.
Yeah.
But, or as far as like doing, like identifying anything that you would feel would be like, this is missing, or this is arbitrary, or this doesn't make any sense, or anything like that. Are there, I mean, for myself, just looking at the fiscal year 24-25, page 24, if anybody is following, on each line item, there are words to the effect of other cost recovery fees, other county grants, other expenses, that seem to be like kind of a miscellaneous, and so I've kind of pulled some of those out. Some of them range from $300 to over $13,000, and so I guess for myself, I would want a more detailed look at what those other expenses are.
Sure.
That's just a statement for me, just to help me identify what it is that we're spending our money on.
Mhm.
To comment on that, I've spent some time looking at some other cities' budgets, you probably have too. And I saw some good, I think a structure that kind of addresses what you're saying. If you wanted to look at Trinidad, which is,
Alex, do you need to
they're a little
give me
smaller
this
than
one?
us, and then also Fortuna's. And I have some samples here if you want to.
I don't have one, but I got it
I
digitally.
think here we're not as formal, right? Let me show you what I thought. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't put out the narrative for Trinidad, but it's excellent because it provides a greater detail, a list of concerns. It puts out some of the goals, why they're setting what they are. And if you see right here where you have some of these notes on the side, really gives you a full picture of what might be happening within the budget. So you're welcome to take a look and return. Then this one is Fortuna, and of course their population, they're a lot larger, and I had a sense that that one might have been developed in-house, but it kind of shows you a down and dirty way of doing a budget that can still convey a great deal of information. It answered so many questions, and I think the forecasting that they did with Trinidad is excellent. The way that they're beginning to view their budget isn't just like, well, this is what we did last year, this is what we're going to do this year. They're really, casting forward several years, and I think that's what's kind of been driving me on budget and to continue to request information related to our budget is where we're heading in the financial climate from a federal level to a state level is, I guess it begs the question, how reliant are we on grant funds? And what can we expect for our revenues in the future? And I think we have to make a very cautious and mindful adjustment and not be overly optimistic on what those are. Looking at Fortuna, they were in a similar situation, and really all of Humboldt County and other counties throughout California are facing this type of a situation. It isn't necessarily unique to us. But Fortuna really is taking a look on how they could get over some of the challenges that they had. It seems like they're really successful. One common element that I saw with both of them is having a capital reserve fund. And I know also with RCA, they have a really significant capital reserve fund. So this policy of, rather than, well, this is what we have, so this is what we can do, having that capital reserve that it might not be specific to, we're doing this for future maintenance, for sewer upgrades on XYZ street, but it can be for those contingencies where you do have an emergency repair or some other unanticipated expense.
Yeah, I tend to be pretty linear when I'm looking at things, and this helps me when it's a designated page. It looks like it may be a program.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our city has a different program, and that's why each page shoots out a different fund, independent, but this seems like it lines up and organizes it in a different fashion that makes it easier for me to read.
And then taking a look at Fortuna's, and I realize they have a great deal more money, and if there's a different program that they're using, it can convey information even more readily. But sometimes just by simply taking the information that we have and presenting it in a pie chart is a quick way, like with percentages. Because if we were to say, what was the budget, how much money did Public Works spend in 2010? How much do they spend now? Well, that's not a fair equivalency there, because all kinds of things, all kinds of factors, just the cost of services, the cost of materials come into play. But when we're able to put these into percentages, then we can really better identify the trends. Have we found that we've had a 30% increase in expenditures for public works? Do we need then to develop a capital reserve to help shore up some of those expenses? So that's kind of what I'm hoping that we could include in our budget, and how we are able to present it to the public and even for our own consumption.
So that's partly why I had 2017-18 printed out, just because there's more of that type of just, you know, information, presentation in there. Starting on page 16,
Oh, 16.
so actually on 15, you have a pie chart showing, city manager wage allocation. Which 33% is sewer, 33 water, 20% is industrial park expansion fund, and 14% was non-departmental. And that's changed. I think that the other 34% currently is coming from the general fund. The industrial park expansion fund, I think, has been depleted entirely. And then on page 17, we have general fund budget breakdown with 34% for general government, 16% for streets, 43% for parks and recreation, and 7% for building and planning official. And page 18,
Before
just
you
really
go too
basic.
far into that,
Yeah.
just to comment on how we look at our salary and wages and where they're applied within the budget for departments. Fortuna, again, has an excellent example. All small towns with their employees are kind of, there's a lot of bleed over. It's really rare that you get one person who's doing one thing that fits solely within one department. So, you know, as we know, you have to prorate how much of their, of that labor, and thereby that salary and wages, goes towards a particular program or department.
right?
And Fortuna does a really crisp, clear presentation of, you know, each staff, you know, each position and how it's allocated to different funds. So it might be like, it might be a one FTE employee, but it might be 0.2 towards public works and, you know, 0.6 towards administration and then 0.2 towards another.
And they do that for every position?
Yes.
Wow. And that's in their budget summary.
Yes, that was what I was looking at, and I did not do a good job printing out, I apologize, I thought I had that.
That's all right. Yeah, that sounds like a nice tool. Anyway, so, you guys have heard me ask for pie charts, before. Here's another one on page 20 in the older, that actually has dollar figures. But it's in a pie chart, so you can sort of estimate percentages, by, you know, just by looking at it. And that's, general fund, source revenue. Anyway, part of, I've struggled over the last 3 years to fully understand what's in the budget and find the parts and pieces and put them together in a way that makes sense. And so when I look back at old budgets that have pie charts, and I'm like, it just has this really easy breakdown of percentages and distribution, and I find that's really helpful. But also, I think, because I don't have a good concept of how much of our budget goes to wages, benefits, and pensions, and without that kind of a breakdown, you know, it would take hours to put the pieces together. So, and I feel like if we have any ability at all to control expenditures, you know, we need to know those kinds of things and make some decisions about how we go forward, whether we have the revenue, you know, whether we have all the revenue answers or not at the beginning of this budget year. You know, we do have some reserves, but we've been eating into those reserves over time. So I feel like we probably don't want to keep doing that.
I don't know if this cycle is the one where we would be able to take a deep dive onto that subsection of the budget being pensions. But it's certainly something that, you know, again, if you look at others and for any city, over time, that percentage of your budget that goes toward pensions can really begin to grow. So we would have to begin to lay the groundwork now to be able to support those pensions in the future.
Right.
And that is something that, again, I don't think this cycle was the one that we were gonna be able to, address that. But the following cycle should be a beginning of forecasting for pensions and that growth, because we're kind of beginning to trigger more retirements out, which will increase the burden on the pensions.
Right, and some of those numbers are unfunded future liabilities,
Mhm.
so, some of that is in there and identified as unfunded future. And I'm unclear, I mean, about how much of those pension funds are going out each year versus these future obligations. And that gets pretty complicated. So that's, that is certainly a concern, and there's been some changes, in the last few years where we had to pay out hundreds of thousands of dollars, that wasn't anticipated because of the state PERS fund not performing well. And so, some of that stuff maybe we wouldn't be able to anticipate very well. But some of it, we certainly have to try to wrap our heads around it and put that in its own category.
On March 21st, the staff report that we were given has some of the summarized budget expenditures and revenues exceeding expenses and overall cash balance, and it's all lined up. And this is the financial report from July 1st through February 28th, and we received this in March.
In the late March meeting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so there is a summary on the first couple of pages that identifies some of the
Which page are you on?
1 and 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Just talking about what happened and where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me, when I was thinking about this, I wanted to take a deeper dive and look at the Institute for Local Government and look at their financial, municipal revenue, basic information, things to ask, things to, I just found some of the resources on that website beneficial to have an overall general understanding of budgeting, city budgets. And then if we're going to be doing a review, some of the questions regarding revenue, expenditure, personnel, capital projects, reserves and contingencies, debts and liabilities, legal and compliance, and then governance, like does the budget reflect community input and values? And so it seems like we need to go back a few steps to have I feel like I need to go back a few steps, have an overall understanding of what it is before we get into some of the specifics, and we're at a time crunch. Mm-hmm. So we do need to have a clear understanding so we can adopt a budget that's presented to us in June, given that,
Mm-hmm.
That we have a clear understanding of what it looks like.
Right.
Could you send a link or PDF that information to the city manager so they can distribute to all of us?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And on that, and similarly, been looking at Rio Dell, and they had a really great timeline to follow on the budget. I agree that there's several steps that ideally, and I think following other towns, we would have already had by now, but we are where we are. But as far as like the baseline budget, and then also getting public input on this, there's more process than just, hey, I want to see this pie chart. And I know that's not what you're saying either, Elise. But we are where we are today, and working this out.
So what was Rio Dell doing?
So they had a timeline, February to March. Well, I think for most
I've
federal,
seen some examples. Yeah.
right, and that's your baseline budget. Then you start to cast out like March and April, you're getting from the different departments. April, May, City Council discusses recommended budget priorities, receives community feedback. And then, June, that's that's the adoption, and ideally, by now, we would have been further down the road. And I think a best case scenario would be, the no later than the first or the second week of June, we would really be looking at our final version for any other mock-up
Sure.
and details.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that we'd get, then I think our next meeting after that, the regular scheduled meeting, is the 27th or 28th,
I
something.
think it's the
That it would
24th.
just be an approval, that there's, you don't wanna wait till the 11th hour and
Right,
try to clean
right,
up stuff.
right.
Right, and I think that, and looking back, there have been regular reports, either from our auditor, yes, the one that was received, October 17th, 2024 was late. However, we do get those mid-year budget reports that kind of help us identify if we're on track with our budget.
Right,
And so I feel like a lot of that stuff is, it's available. We just have to have a more organized approach to scheduling those steps out to make sure that we have
Right.
clear reports and that our agendas aren't taken up with,
so,
at least they're touching on them at some of our meetings.
we have one page of what was a several page report that I asked for, which was the budget year amendments for 23-24. And what I was wanting to discuss was that, in our preliminary 24-25 budget that we got in early June, we had some numbers here that turned out to be, not very accurate. And so we built and adopted our 24-25 budget, based on the numbers we had in early June. And when we got the reconciliation in July, it was very different. In early June, we looked like we were over budget, but we were over budget to a fairly equal ratio of excessive revenues that we weren't expecting, right? So we had gotten an additional about $130,000 in property tax and sales and use tax revenues, and we had spent, our report at that time showed that money was all spent, but we had projected a $96,000 general fund surplus for that budget year. So it looked like, okay, we're still, we got more, we spent more, but we got more, so we're still, we're still in about the same place that we expected to be. But a month later, we learned that, well, we'd actually spent about $200,000 above that level. And so that really changed the picture pretty dramatically. And that was all invoices that we didn't, I guess invoices that came in late that had to be reconciled, obviously. But so that to me really changes the picture. We went from, being about 15% over budget to being 37% over budget for the general fund. And so that's something that's got me going, wait a minute, that's, we can get these monthly or quarterly reports as we go through the year. We're on budget, on budget, on budget, on budget. And then in the last month, we go 37% over budget. It's like, whoa, how did that happen?
Well, we all know. I mean, it's a fluid process. It's like, money doesn't really know dates. It's
Right.
They're gonna be like, okay, here we are. Burp.
Yeah. But that's the kind of forecast. I mean, like if you have big stuff that's happening, it's happening, and so there's some forecasting that should be going into what you're working with. I mean, I don't think that $200,000 was a surprise. It was, something we probably could have forecast
Right.
and considered. But it's just
Can I, before we
carry on.
drifting, on that, do we have, I think this last financial report, we had to request to get that, and we don't seem to, I don't know if there's a schedule for, oh yeah, you're gonna get a financial report, every 3 months or whatever it is, but I think it's a,
Well, I think that Danny and Scott are working to bring us financial reports more often
right.
than we were getting
That's-
them.
But I'm asking, like, where we were, and this is something that really, I think it kind of falls under council. that, I know that we're a small town, and there's a lot that we being previous people, right, we stand on the shoulders of others, that there are a lot of things to do, but I think it's incumbent on the council to develop some of these policies that help guide them. And, I don't know that just one mid-year report is quite enough, because by the time that gets together, you've lost some time already on how to do adjustments. Quarterly seems a little too soon, but, what if it was a report every 4 months? That seems doable on the staff labor side, and it seems that it could be timely enough that if the council needed to take action to make adjustments to the budget, that it could. But the larger picture, and I think this is where council comes in, is it isn't to direct staff, I want you to put it X, Y, Z, but that we have a policy, so there's an expectation of when we would be getting these financial reports.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree, and I think that when I first came on council, we weren't getting financial reports, and I was noticing at RCEA, it's like, oh, every month we have all these financial reports, and a mid-year budget review, a full budget review, where the board was asked to make some adjustments and approve this and approve that. And so I mentioned that, and we started getting some financial reports in our packets, but they're always in warrants and disbursements, or, kind of at the back of the packet, and we don't spend time on them. So I'd like to have an absolute, date in January where we review the budget, we look at where we are, we figure out if we need to make any adjustments, and we make them if we need to. Because it does take, I think that these budget, or these financial reports that are generated every month or every quarter, some of that is just a reconciliation of funds that, our finance manager and our accountant need to do, and then they can generate those. But for us to be looking hard at what's happening and forecasting and making adjustments is a much heavier lift.
We had a question from the audience.
Not a question, I hope a helpful suggestion. The way I would say a council person to keep track of city financials are get the bank statements that come in every month, the public record. And if you don't need public record, you can go check them. Just check starting balance, withdrawals, starting balance, deposits, withdrawals, ending balance. Keep that for each item that you want. Now, the bank's not going to separate that for you. But if you have starting balance of the city's total cash, you get deposits, you get withdrawals, you get closing balance, and then you know how the city's finances are going. Are they going up or down? And if you keep it through the course of the year, you will see there is an amazing amount of income coming in April when the state doles out the property tax, as they say. And the rest of the time, there's lesser amounts coming in, but the state has grants and so on. So you get these wide fluctuations in your financials that happen, and over time, they average out. And it's very easy to keep track of it that way for yourself. And now it's a gross picture. You don't get the fine details of where the money is going in the city, but you can keep track of exactly how much money is in the city at the start of the month and the end of the month. And that's very helpful to your budgeting process.
I think I understand what you're saying, and I agree, but as you brought up, there are wide fluctuations during the year. As grants come in, I work with grants and have, we'll have, after there's a couple of deliverables, then I'll have a big dump of $25,000 in our account, and then several months go by, and then another big dump of 30 or whatever it is. But I still have to go back to this financial report, the unaudited financial report from March that covered from July through February. And it seems that if you wanted to have a shorter period of time that we could we could request that, but it does talk about the actual year-to-date, the fiscal year budget, if we're over or under, and then the percentage of over and under. And it seems like it's for every single fund number. And so it'd be like, well, what more do we want? If we want it presented in a different fashion, so it's more easily viewable, so we can really see it, then that would be something that we could request. I'm hoping today some of the objectives will be to get out of this what more research and homework we need to do to understand the budget. That would be what I would hope to get out of this morning, is to have a clearer understanding.
I think that's definitely one of our goals.
Okay.
A primary goal was to understand what we can from what we have and formulate a list of questions, and then
And we can bank some resources, distribute resources that may be helpful, maybe they won't be helpful, but, I'm looking at videos from multiple cities in California on their budget review and their budget 101 and their municipal revenue, in services that they have. And some of them are 4 hours long. I'm just, it's like a background thing, but I can touch on some different points of the presentations just to educate myself. And I think that that's something that we all need to.
Did you look at Eureka from last year?
I didn't. Was it?
Eureka did a presentation in May of last year, and I thought it was really good.
And they're doing it May 5th. They're doing it, and it's going to be available online. They're going to be doing their budget process.
Great.
It's a big one, so I just recommend you guys.
Well, I thought they did a really good job last year, so that's
Okay.
a good point of reference.
Michelle, a question for you, the liaison for the League of California Cities.
Mm-hmm.
And do they have any budget guidance stuff that you can access?
It's funny that you would ask that. Before I became a council person, I went into their website and they had this beautiful layout, and the website was very, very easy to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
And it had searchable terms, and then something happened after January. There are some resources that you can get, like if you go into specific events, learning events, like 2-day retreats, those things, that you can go into those, and then you can go in and capture the presentation slide decks from specific modules, learning modules. But I'm not finding as many resources as easily when I do a search. More of their stuff is in very general categories that don't seem to get down. I'm like trying financial, revenue, municipal budget. I'm trying all of these different search terms, but it's not as easy to navigate for me. I'm not sure, maybe I'm not taking enough time to get through it, but it's not as intuitive as it was prior.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I thought maybe I just had a stroke and now I can't.
No, I mean, if you go into their events, and then you can find some of their events, like the new council events, they go into that one, go into the 25 one, and then, or there's a 24, there's a 23, then you can look at their slide decks.
Yeah.
But as far as having like a, tips and tricks 101 for municipal revenues in California, that's, I haven't seen it.
What I have found online, you probably have come across this too, is the state of Washington.
Yes.
Yeah.
Massachusetts also has some
Yeah,
really good ones. And I'm like, okay,
so,
kind of getting off the.
Two questions. We can ask the audience questions since it's this workshop. They don't have the answer.
Yeah, it's more.
I think, Ms. Adling, were you the liaison to the League of the California Cities?
I was.
Okay, and I think that we pay membership, like, so the city is a registered member. I thought that the barriers that I was having is because, I'm not the liaison, so I'm not like the registered user to be able to access their site. But were you able to access all of the resources, or is there some other,
Well, you have a login, you become a member, and you get the invitation. I think we all got it at the beginning of an email saying, here's your connection, and you can create a login.
okay,
To maybe have more access, but I'm still struggling.
okay.
I don't know what Adeline's experience was, but.
Okay.
Yeah, similar. Anyone can get logged in as long as you're an elected official, and I think the public can as well. I mean, the budget is a fluid document, and it's a blueprint, but it's not set in stone. You're gonna have budget amendments to be made once everything is reconciled. That just happens every year. What I found in the last 10 years that Mandy was our manager is that we had budgets on time, which had not happened in the past. Alex can maybe cooperate with me, because when we were on the council together, we had some budgets that had to be extended, which is okay too. You can get around that. That's not completely illegal. And then the audits, that's up to the auditor. That just, the way that works is fluid as well. And then I think you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so last year, at least you were saying that there was a deficit that came out, that we were having a larger deficit than anticipated. How was that deficit? Was it handled with one-time money, or that you transferred?
Well, what I'm saying is we were over budget. We budgeted $1,009,000 from the general fund, and we spent $1.372 million out of the general fund. Some of that money came back in terms of grants, so it wasn't all, out of the general fund, typical revenues. And that's part of some of this is the way it's presented. We have transfers in and transfers out, and those are never identified. And so that's one of the changes I'd like to see in our budget presentation and documentation is, and I asked Scott one time, why don't we just pay this bill out of the fund that the money's coming from? Why do we pay it out of the general fund and then put a line that says transfers in? And he just said, well, that's just the way we do it. So maybe we can change the way we do that. If we're paying $170,000 out of the Supplemental Law Enforcement Services grant, let's just pay it out of that fund and show it paid out of that fund.
But what you mean is, right now, currently, it would be, we need to make this payment, it's for this fund, we don't have the monies in that fund, but we'll take it from the general fund and pay it directly, rather than going from general fund monies, transfer it into that fund and pay out of that fund, and then back in. You're saying it's a direct line to
Something
general
like
fund?
that, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
If that's the case, that would make it more difficult to understand what we have going on in the general fund.
And I also wanted to say that it would be really helpful, I know, as part of the government code, when every month when the warrants and distributions come out, another requirement of that is to have beginning and ending fund balances of all of the funds for the city. And I know that was true for the school district that I worked for 30 years. And for me as a public person, that would be helpful, because you would be able to see if there was a change in that fund monthly, and then be able to look at the warrants and distributions, because they're also identified as funds. You would be able to have a clearer picture every month if that was included in the packet monthly. So
And I think like a common thing that I'm hearing from almost everyone here is, yes, budgets are fluid. Money doesn't recognize time, or however it was that you cleverly put that. And these surprises, which, is it a surprise? It's not a surprise. But a common element is that, or something that I think could be a fix that's common to all these, is to strengthen our forecasting. And it doesn't mean that we're just like crystal balling this, I wonder how it would be. If we're based on, okay, well, we know that we have anticipated expenditures for Fund Z to go out somewhere over the course of the next 24 months. But how much that, what percentage of that do you think is going to fall on this side or the other side of the fiscal year? And then also, of course, any other anticipated expenses that pop up.
Alex has a question. Go ahead, Alex.
I have an example. I don't know whether it will clarify or out of city history, clarify or confuse. When the addition to Prash Hall went on in 1991, how the city financed that was, look, general funds is always the most stressed of the city funds, because it handles all of the daily business and stuff. Water sewer funds are restricted. the sewer has always had the largest reserves, except for one short period back in the early part of the century. And the water fund does all right, but they're more expensive with the water fund than the sewer fund. The Fractional financed that extension by floating a loan from the sewer thing, and this was legal, to general fund. It didn't go through general fund, it just went, and it paid for the construction. And then the park paid back the monthly stipend to the sewer fund until that loan was paid off. That's legal. But that's the only way water sewer funds are supposed to be used. They can't be used for general fund operations. And that's restricted to protect the assets of water sewer, which are bloodlines. So I don't know that that helps you in this discussion or not, that money is available for specific purposes, but you gotta pay it back.
Funny question on that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Funny question on that. We don't charge the funds interest though, I'm assuming, right?
What's that?
We don't charge the funds interest when we loan money, do
I don't think so.
we? Okay.
No,
Peggy-
we borrowed from ourselves, is
Yeah, yeah,
basically
right,
what
right, yeah.
happened, which is there is a legal way to do that, and we were
Yeah.
able to do it.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's not recommended
Well,
all the
every
time.
month, you
wanna
go
do
back, you
something.
look, every month you'd see that Parks and Rec, when I forget the sum, okay, that's gone, would be transferred to the sewer to pay that off. And it took a number of years, I mean, 10, 12 years doing that. And, it worked. So I don't know whether that helped you or not, but it was just from what Cap was saying, it sounded germane to me. So I put that together. This is what happened in the past, in the situation of funds being transferred to other funds. There are restrictions on it, and pretty straight, and Peggy Dickinson was a straight arrow. I mean, so it was done by the book with Peggy.
Some of the work with the forecasting and anticipating changes and keeping on top of all of these different funds, we have a couple of people on staff that are paid to do that, right? And so I'm feeling like we need to either know what questions we need to ask, and ask for the information and trust the people that we are paying to do that job.
Right.
Is that not correct?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the council in the past has had very few questions, and very poor understanding of the budget, honestly. You included.
Can we
Yeah,
not, please?
that's-
Give me a break.
That's under.
At least
no
knock it
business.
off.
Please. I don't want to presume anything. We're here today because of all of the work and presence of everybody that precedes us. So we may not like what we see at this moment, but we wouldn't even be in this moment if it wasn't for our predecessors. So let's please be mindful of that, and just, if we can take it from where we are right now, please.
Is it about the I mean,
It's directly about what Elise just selected. And I just wanted to tell you, back from 1998 to 2002, I was on the financials like a rat's on cheese. Okay, so this has proceeded before in you. It's not.
Well, lots of years, Alex. There's lots and lots of years to consider, and I understand. And you're more in tune with the budget than maybe we've been in the last 5 or 10 years. I just find that in the last 3 years, where I've been trying to dig in and gain a better understanding, and try to bring the council to a better understanding, there didn't seem to be a desire to understand to the level that you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
And I just feel like that's important, right? I feel like it's important to try to really understand what we're doing, what we can do, what the breadth of our responsibility is. And it's hard, I'm kind of a numbers person, but I struggle with these documents. I've spent hours working with them. I've sat down numerous times with the accountant, Scott, to gain a better understanding of what this means. So, this is the first time in my tenure of, going on 3 years where the council has sat down to learn about these documents and try to understand better what they mean. So I think it's important. I'm glad we're here.
Great. Any further public comment while we have it open to the public? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate the questions. I appreciate that there is a meeting today and people are looking at this. Michelle, I appreciate your comments about wanting to look into some of the other things that are specific. So like you were talking about the other expenses and things that maybe those could be broke out more, because when I was looking at the budget, there were some pretty big amounts and not being specific. And the other thing is, when we as a city have a lot of big items on our plate that take a long time to solve, then it seems like a lot of money goes to engineering, goes to repeated things, because it doesn't always feel like we can spend as much time as we need to. And I know you have to have lots of things on your plate to juggle, but when I look at how much gets spent in those categories of engineering or staff time or other things for those projects, that is a lot of money. So my thought is, how do you condense that so that a project goes on the table, gets completed out maybe faster than not changed as much? And then being part of an organization that had to have financials that looked very similar to this, there was always a presentation on the budget that had the pie charts, the graphs, the forward thinking 3 years out. How do you manage for those things like your, the pension funds and things that you're going to have to pay out? And I do appreciate that that's all been brought up. Those are things that I was thinking about as well. So thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was, and generated a city budget review checklist that went over specific things, and part of that was long-term planning, but on the expenditures, one of the questions is for your checklist, do expenditures align with city priorities and strategic goals?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we at with that? We haven't reached there yet. And so those are some things that we're gonna have to I think that we need to tackle this as we can. We don't have a city manager here to identify whether or not these fund numbers are gonna be the same for the next year. Are we anticipating different funds? Are we losing any funds? Are we adding any, that kind of thing? And so there are some things that we have to get the basics down and then take these budget discussions maybe further piece by piece, so we have a clearer understanding of where we're heading.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important, but I do also want to trust the people that we have in place to help us navigate through the budget as well.
Mm-hmm.
Being the city
Yes.
manager and our financial person.
Well, and I think that, we're here because we're doing remedial budget today.
Yeah.
And we don't need to drag staff through our remedial budget
No.
chats.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not here. Yes, we don't need to flog them with the stupid questions. We can try to answer the stupid questions amongst ourselves. And so that's what this is about.
Go ahead, Alex. Are you done, Elise?
I think the city archives have some, if you go back, look at city records, see if you can find the internal financials that the city manager would provide to the council. When I was on the council, it was 98-202. Those had other problems, but their formatting was very good. Okay, and they would show you, and they had the funds, they had first the accounts, banks, okay, what's over here happening in the bank, and then you got a layout of all the city funds, starting balance, ending balance, and all the activity in them, cash and non-cash activity in them. Now, a lot of that was extraneous. You don't need all that. What you need are opening balances, revenue expenses, closing balances for your funds. And that should be easy, about 6 months after, 6 weeks. Within 6 weeks after the month closes, you should be able to get those type of reports from staff. And it's very clear, just opening balance, revenue, expenses, closing balances. In banks, it's opening balance, deposits, withdrawals, ending balance. But that's basically all you need to track the cash flow. Now, it's not telling you particularly where the cash is going, but it's letting you know what's being expended in what funds. And the formatting of those financials weren't the problems I had. They were good. It was a good format. And so I would suggest, and I think you could find them in that period. The other point to make is the city of Blue Lake went 19 months, this is late, from 96 through fiscal year 96, 97. 97, I think the first time was January 98 was the first time we got, no, 99, I forgot. But anyway, there was like 19 months in that period where the city council got no financials. Now, I was the one to raise this thing about it.
Driving over the cliff.
Made me very unpopular at that time. But that really happened back then, and I can understand Elise's concern. But you can set that up dealing with the formatting of the financials you would like to see. And keep it simple so that, boom, starting, that should be available within 6 weeks of the closing of the prior month. And then you got what you need to manage, not to micromanage, but to manage our financials. And so I think if you go back there and look at the city internal financials, then you'll find a format that you can save yourself a lot of time. And you can adjust that to your needs.
Thank you, Alex. Any other comment from the public?
Well, I just want to say that, Elise, you don't have any idea of whether council persons
do
in
not
the past asked staff to identify budget items and to discuss the budget.
Don't
So
engage.
I tend to resent your remark that we were not interested, because instead of taking up council time, we went to staff and the auditor directly and asked him about items that we had questions about. So you're mischaracterizing what was going on.
Yeah, and I think that that's the other thing that, you bring up a really good point. There's a few things that we could probably, as far as efficiency, I know we're a little off that, but we can go directly to staff individually, ask for the items that we need rather than bringing back, requesting it at the city council meeting and then saying you did deliver. So maybe we're just going straight directly to the staff is really a good thought.
Thank you. Let's
Well,
get back to the budget, if that's okay
and
with
that-
everybody.
Yeah.
To staff, I mean, I think it's silly if all 5 of us go to staff with the same question. So it's not very efficient for staff to have to answer over and over and over again. That's partly why I think it's a good idea to gather and do work sessions. But anyway. And also it helps that we all have access to the same information. So we have a common jumping off place as we're moving forward. So, anyway.
Well, both things can happen. We could both meet with staff as they're available with our specific questions. We can also work on some of these together. But I think some of this also is asking the right questions. And it's like determine our goals. So, what I'm hearing today are some ideas about formatting, and I think another common theme is wanting to be able to identify more clearly where a particular expenditure went. And I think those are achievable.
I agree.
So we were on the 2023-24 budget. Are we going back to that, or where are we, Mr. Mayor?
If you like, yeah.
Lisa's running the show.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm not running the show.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to try to, help answer whatever questions you have, so fire away. Somehow I didn't get a copy of that thing. Okay.
Do we have any questions? I
My
mean,
question is, what are my questions?
That's the ticket.
I just think it's hard to do a lot here without staff and without, next year's potential budget.
Right, and looking at anticipated increases in revenue and increases in expenses. But general overview for sure. Getting more familiar.
Well, it's good.
Well,
to
yeah,
know
and
what's
the
wrong
budget
right now.
item was really, the budget, or the agenda item stated 25, 26, I think, right? Which is kind of we probably should have caught that and altered that, because that's not really what it is. So, anyway. It was, it was a budget work session in anticipation of 25, 26, but we're not working on 25, 26. Anyway.
Well, let's go ahead and take a little time, and if we want to review, let's spend 10 minutes reviewing some documentation, see if we come up with any more questions,
Good idea.
and maybe the public wants to look at the documentation as well, see if they have anything to bring forward, and then maybe we'll.
I don't need that detail. That's your responsibility. I'll take that time to take a collaborate.
I think I'll take that time to leave. I'm gonna be protesting in Eureka in a couple hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing that either with Exums.
Are you guys normally early risers to be here late?
No, I'm not.
Well, thank you for being
They
here.
are.
You guys are early?
We have a cat that gets us up at 5 a.m.
And they don't really need to be fed, they're just walking on it, telling you it's time to get up.
It's time to pay attention to me.
Yeah.
I have a question. The Waters Fund and structural deficit and its declining reserves are a concern. Are you guys seeing that
So
too?
the water and sewer funds, operational funds, have been a disaster for a long time. And by disaster, they've been running at a deficit for a long time.
Okay.
And so 3 years ago, in early 23, or no, late, I think it was December of 22, the council adopted the new rate schedule, which stipulates increases over a 5-year period. There was a fairly substantial increase the first year, and then 4 more smaller increases. And I think we've just we've just implemented the third increase, which is intended to bring us to a better place at the end of the 5-year period, but it won't bring us probably to a fully balanced situation, because there's been such increases in costs over time. But it also, what it did too, is it removed that $10 sewer capital reserve fund charge that was on everybody's bill every month. And so at the beginning of this, we had $1.4 million in our sewer capital reserve fund.
Beginning of this, when?
Beginning of this process, which is 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago. And so that fund is no longer increasing. It's being depleted over time with various projects and repairs.
And you're on Fund 60, the water operating?
I'm talking about water and sewer operating, and capital reserves. So it's 60, 61, and 62, and 70, 71, and 72, I think.
So I'm in the summary report for the sewer operations fund, and
You say what page you're on
it's the financial report that we received in March,
Okay.
and it's page 2, and it has sewer operating fund 70 only. Revenues exceeded expenses by 131,000. Revenues exceeded expenses, including and excluding depreciation, by 48,000. Now, water operating fund 60 was cash decreased by $7,882 from between December 31st and February 28th. And so I guess I need to know where, because you're saying that both the water and the sewer, because it looks like sewer was doing okay, but it's water that's not.
Well, there's 3 funds for each of these.
Okay.
And operating funds, the operating funds have been running at a deficit for quite a long time. And I think they're getting close to gaining with the increases.
With this rate
And so, honestly, I have not looked at these as closely as I possibly could have. So let's see where they are in this report. Pages 13 through 17 or so. So
Which report?
On the
that same
March.
packet, if you let's go to page 13. So, water fund, this is the operations fund. So our year-to-date actual revenues are $380,225. We're budgeting, we're expecting revenues of $616,791. So currently we're at 61% of that.
This was, a couple of months ago, but yeah.
Right, but that's so 61% at that period of time is appropriate. And overall, it looks, overall we're still spending more than we're bringing in. If you look, at the
Right.
bottom of the page, we were 24,000
Over.
over. Anyway, the point being that those scheduled increases in rates are intended to catch us up over the 5-year period, but then we're gonna be looking at another rate study and more increases. And there's some reserves, obviously, that aren't reflected here exactly, because we're talking cash balance and then we're talking about operating budget. So there's a cash balance in those funds that is greater than the operating operating funds that we're working with. we're budgeting to work with.
On that same one, with the depreciation of $31,000 that was not budgeted for, that puts us over. What depreciation was?
Which page are you on now? Sorry.
13.
You're on 13, and we have depreciation line. Yeah. So depreciation, every bit of equipment and infrastructure is depreciated over time, and so that's factored into the cost. But
Right.
it's not a realized cost at that moment, right? So when you factor it in, it makes your picture look a lot worse than if you just set it aside and try to ignore it. So yeah, depreciation is a big piece
Yeah.
for all of these things.
Yeah.
And that's, that's part of what gets factored into the rate studies and the rates.
Water.
So it's not an actual realized loss, it's just, an anticipated, an anticipated cost, because all those things will have to be replaced. So you can see the capital reserve, we don't have a cash balance for capital reserve, but, for water, which is 62 on page 15, but we're expecting a whopping $284, or we have $284 that have gone into it. And we're expecting $550 to go into it over the course of 12 months. So that's hurting. And the connection fee is, pretty basic.
Yeah, is that standard rate? I mean, that would just be like a side question, like, are we,
I think a connection fee is somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 or so. So we're budgeting for less than 3 of those. It looks like per year, but I don't know that absolutely. I haven't heard that in a while. I haven't gotten an actual number answer to that question in a while. And then if you look at sewer, and then, turbidity fees, that's just a whole nother little thing, but that's not a big fund. So if you look at, page 17 for sewer operations, looks like we're doing all right there so far this year. But we've spent 80% of our anticipated budget, and collected 74% of our anticipated revenues. And those numbers are a little high for that period of time. And then the connection fee, that's also minimal. And if you look at capital reserve funds, so I'm not even sure how to read this, because it's my understanding that we're not actually putting money into capital reserves right now, but maybe we've had a good first part of the year, and so that we've actually put some money in there.
so it's like just looking at the interest that we're gaining?
Yeah, from that what's left of the 1.2 million, we're getting interest on that. So that's significant.
How is that interest, is it compounding, or is it being absorbed in the daily expense, revenue expense operations?
I think it goes into the, I think it goes back into the fund. It's compounding. It's
being
compounding,
compounded.
I believe.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good. That's good.
So,
And the reserves have always been mostly sewer funds.
the reserves.
Huh.
The reserves, yes. The reserves have.
Well, there's the capital, because of that $10 a month for the last couple of decades, a lot of money went into that fund. in the last 20
Well,
years.
it's also the nature of sewage is that it isn't under pressure. The water system is under pressure, high pressure in Blue Lake. So water is more expensive to deliver than the waste evacuation is. So sewer is always 2/3 of the savings.
Right.
approximately.
Well, and I don't know why that, I mean, I assume because once the Barclay lawsuit was paid off, the Barclay units just became the capital reserve charge, and it all went to sewer. And I that doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but that's what it was.
You're exactly right, Elise. You're exactly right.
Thanks, Alex.
This is a golden moment. Just preserve this.
No, she's exactly right, and for a reason that I'm not going to go into now, but I will go into it with anyone who wants to hear it. But you were right, and when it happened, it was said to the responsible official, who was not a council person. This is when the city manager had absolute control. The city manager ordinance has been changed in the intervening years. But back then, when Dwayne Wiggy was city manager, he was a czar. And you go back and look at old ordinance, I forget the number, 238, I think. And it gave him, you know who the police worked for in those days? Not the council, city manager, directly.
Well, it still
So
reads that way.
You want me to shut up, John?
No, I don't want you. I don't want you to shut up. I just want to keep it focused on
Okay, well,
the budget.
I-
If that's
I was
okay.
wondering, but,
Yeah.
but the thing about Elise's point is exactly right. And that's one of the reasons, I don't know whether they extend to this day. But back then, and it was not legal. It was illegal.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, this is casual, I'm not trying to direct this, I'm suggesting to other council members that we look at the 32 minutes that we have remaining
Mhm.
and decide if there are particular goals or takeaways that we want either for ourselves or as a council to bring forward for staff to peruse or consider or provide.
Mhm.
I'm kind of a broken record when it comes to projections and forecasting revenues. And I would hope that sooner rather than later, we could take a close look at what we anticipate for the next 3 years. One part being of the revenues that we have over a 10-year period, what percentage are grants, and then forecasting with a somewhat pessimistic view of grant availability so that we can be aware of how we need to fund, whether it's departments, staffing, repairs, etc. That's one of my major concerns right now.
So you'd want trackability? Is that what it sounds like?
More than tracking, I would like that, in the staff, I mean, that's, it could be a big ask, or maybe it's not a big ask, but I do think that, staff is able to work with accounting, and it's just a matter of putting in a factor, right? You can, a simple spreadsheet, you make some assumptions with it, and we say, looking at the last 3 budgets, we see 23% of our revenue comes from grants. Okay, let's just say as a statement. Let's adjust that figure and say we expect only 15% of our revenues would come from grants. Then where would we need to adjust? So a question that I would have is, how much do the grants that we have been getting historically, whether it's a one-time or a yearly, what have they been supporting, and how would we support them if those grant funds diminish? Kind of a job question.
In addition, I would have us anticipate some expenditures for the coming time period. If you look on page 1 of that report from 321, it indicates that in the general government, general fund, Fund 10 only, we have some over budget expenditures involving legal at 165% over, and then planning and capital outlay, which there are some things that we can't anticipate, but, there's definitely some things that we can.
Mhm. Well, and historically, our budget for legal was minuscule. We, you know, in 2 years before this council came in, we had Ryan at meetings a handful of times. And, so he's been here a lot since we've been here. There's been a lot going on. Anyway, I mean, some of that is, you know, it's all true. But there's a lot of different things happening in that regard as well.
I kind of like that we were getting individual council persons' thoughts or takeaways or goals.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I agree on the expenditures.
For me, I think it's just looking at like presentation, making it digestible not only for someone who's very versed in budgeting, but also potentially have something that's digestible by the public as well. So that way they feel that everything's transparent and nothing's hidden, but make it also to a level that they can understand it if possible.
Yeah, and I think hopefully not pie in the sky goal would be to look at strategic planning and goals for the city in order to base our budgetary decisions on those things, but we're not there yet.
Right. Yeah, I think.
Another discussion.
Right, and we started that discussion, and we're supposedly waiting to hear about a facilitator for.
Yeah, has anybody? Okay.
Let's focus on the budget, please.
But valid points related to the budget. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's
I'm
just,
sorry.
there's so much big stuff,
No,
you know.
John, were you finished with?
Sorry, I only had 3 hours of sleep last night. I apologize. So if I'm a little foggy right now, I apologize.
Yeah, running about the same. So you, I guess that one of your takeaways that we want to move forward would be digestible presentation.
Right.
Of budgeting. Okay.
Right.
I can submit, if people find them useful, to the city manager, some resources from the Institute for Local Government. They have a whole financial management page with different resources. And there are some, 24, 34 page documents. There's a couple of 1-page documents that are helpful, understanding the basics of municipal revenues in California cities. And then financial management for elected officials, questions to ask. And so I can submit those to the city manager for disbursement to our team and have them maybe
Yes.
available on the.
Yeah.
Did you find parts in there that you thought were particularly useful?
Yes, I mean, there's some that maybe aren't relevant to us and some that are like a way beyond where we're sitting for our little place, like hotel transient, I mean, there's just some investment information in
right.
here and some other stuff, but I find it necessary to understand all of the moving pieces in a budget, and so these I found to be helpful.
So if there's if there's certain pages in there that you would want to say, hey,
I'm
put a
just
star
gonna
on those?
submit the documents to her, and then everybody can figure out what's helpful for them individually. But they're pretty easy to read.
You're not going to pre-screen it for us.
I mean, I can highlight everything. And,
I'm just
that
saying,
seems
if
silly.
you found something that was really great that
Got-
you said, aha,
I don't think that we.
it's helpful to have that.
Can we not do anything?
I don't
like
think we
that?
can provide direction to staff from a workshop. Alex, do you know? I'm sorry to.
Yes, I mean, we could ask her to.
I have no idea about that.
Okay.
I would imagine the mayor can convey
Okay.
suggestions anytime he wants, as long as it's a, helpful suggestion.
Right.
You know?
Right.
My goal in asking is just that we kind of become, that we focus in a little bit rather than meandering, that we have a takeaway today.
So I guess we can't formally do any binding direction.
Right.
We can come up with some recommendations to staff.
Okay.
Okay, well then.
I mean, I think we can formulate everything and bring it forward.
And it gives us
I think we can probably also, if we want to, form an ad hoc committee today to convey some of this stuff with staff, so that we have a more direct sit down and work on these things kind of a function, right?
I don't know.
I think yeah.
You're not getting this back. I think I just came across them too.
And you know, I mean, like, even, like, this one is 2016 update, so some of the, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt, like, okay, so maybe they're a little outdated, this is 2013, but I think they have basic,
Yeah.
terms and, definitions and glossary, you know, that are things that aren't gonna really change.
We cannot form an ad hoc in a workshop meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, okay then.
Yes, just for discussion only.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because I'm trying to take a few notes, even though you're the official secretary, and I'm trying to get some notes. John, did you have anything in addition to the presentation to be digestible?
No, let me just make sure we get through our agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Elise?
I'm not just a broken record. My brain's not detail. The digestible and the detail is really my thing. I wanna see lots of different categories broken out by pie chart percentages. I wanna get a really solid handle on where we're headed. So absolutely in agreement with the forecasting for revenues and expenditures, and identifying, essential services and areas where, if we need to, we can deal with some, we can pull back some. And it's and the priority piece too of that, I mean, and again, visioning, but this gets a little more nitty gritty than the giant vision. It's just like, how are we gonna prioritize certain types of services, Is our safety services gonna trump Parks and Rec services, or is Parks and Rec gonna trump safety, and where are we? And,
We also need public input on that too. So.
yeah, and what, what are we gonna prioritize?
Well, we know some of the things are indisputably required: sewer, water, roads. These are basic services. And then going beyond that and trying to reflect citizens' priorities and act accordingly.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, and you guys now, you have the 17-18 budget to look at this detail, but I love this detail. There's just great stuff about where money's coming from and going.
So funny you said that on the pie charts. I have some extremely sophisticated hand-drawn pie charts here.
That's awesome.
But it was what I was trying to capture their thoughts in the moment and not get bogged down by technology, as some of us are. And what I was looking at is, of course, you have the categories of expenditures, you have categories of revenue, and then, within expenditures, obviously, we subdivide those and by department. So this would be one of the ways, for instance, it could be helpful to see, just in simple pie graph chart form. It's one thing to say, here is our overall expenditure for all departments, and Public Works was this, and Parks and Rec was this, and Administration was this, and Planning and Building. But then I think this kind of speaks to being able to provide to the public more detail and being digestible to the public is we take each department as well and break those categories out. And it might be, it might show the staffing cost in there. It could show, utilities, equipment, materials, etc. So the first chart would be an overview by all departments of the expenditures. So we would know, oh, great, we're spending 60% of our budget is towards sewer and water. And we know that we have to provide those services. So, is there something that we're doing that is making it more expensive for the people than it should be? Or, on the other hand, we're seeing in our reports that we're still falling behind. So, how do we supplement that? Then the next would be, if we see that Public Works is, 40% of our budget, and public safety is 15% of our budget. You know, if that's where it is, you know, desired by the public, then that's where it stands. But we can't make these fair assessments policy-wise if we don't know individually, you know, what each department both provides and requires financially. Sorry, got one more.
Right.
Could you show, like, read off your departments?
Okay, so the first expenditure, the first pie graph would show for the city on expenditures, and it would show categories of public works, parks and rec, administration, planning and building, and then other, because there's always some other category. Then taking each one of these with another pie chart with public works, it would show staffing expenses, maintenance materials, equipment purchases, utilities, capital improvements, and other. And these aren't the definitive and final and only categories. These are just what I grabbed and threw in there. But it gives us a sense within each department where those expenses go. Another example, administration, and you know, I would assume that it would be staff heavy because they aren't buying trucks and laying pipes. But if we were looking at the pie chart for the expenditures of administration, it might be categories like staffing or tech support, software, computers, other equipment, utilities, and then again another other category. So, you know, and that kind of repeating those themes for each one, you know, planning and building department, how much on contract labor, how much on staff, how much on supplies, parks and rec, how much on staff, how much on maintenance and repairs, capital improvements, utilities.
So you've already identified all of these funds and you've drawn your own. Can you hand those off to somebody who can put them into a chart for you in Excel?
Yeah, you know, I tried, but I can't access Excel anymore. You've got to have a whole darn thing.
We have Google Sheets.
You
No, I don't want to
do, and
divert
that's-
too far, but yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but
Like-
it looks, I mean,
This was just like, you know, I'm sitting there looking like, wait a minute.
I mean, if
okay,
you've
this is
already
what I wanna
done
see.
all of the piecing, it's like just anyway.
Right, and so this is
There is.
where, you know, you have
Oh,
to
sorry.
back into this, and we have to, you
Terry
know,
has her hand
and
up.
some of this might be you have to export it, and I'm sorry I'm getting into too much.
It's somewhat related. So
I think you guys get the idea, the same thing than we would do for our revenues. So, you can always have the money amount, but, you know, by getting that percentage and how it relates to other departments, other expenditures, really informs us where it goes.
just go ahead.
I do appreciate that. As a, you know, just a member of the public, just looking at the format of a budget, just being lists of items, does make it really difficult to make any kind of comparison. And exactly what you're saying, Kat, our yearly budget at school used to include that, and then the pie charts would be for the prior year, maybe even the prior 2 years, and then that year, and they would be broken down like that. And what was so helpful, you could immediately say, wow, this area has grown exponentially over the last 2 years. Let's look into that more. So having the ability to be able to look at that as a pie chart is super helpful, and it does make it a lot easier, even for the public, totally just being able to look at it and say, I want to know more about this as the public because, you know, we spent a whole lot and then that dropped down, or because it's, you know, we're spending more, and having it broke down into categories like that would be really helpful, because then you'd be able to see where those are. And I think it's really important that we do look at what is the future spending, because there are big things, I'm gonna bring it up again, our levy, that we're responsible for, the portion of it, and it's not being maintained. And so how do you look at that at the long term out and say, how are we going to plan for that? How are we gonna plan for an increased hookup for the sewer systems? What are the long term plans for that? So, and they seem insurmountable, I get it, but I think that's something, that household budget you have to look at. So.
Yeah, I like that idea of, you know, the pie charts for the individual departments and expenditures and how those are all parsed out. And to do a comparison, I like to just look at a bar graph. Like, okay, this was 2023, this is 2024, this is 2025, and just so that we can see that. Maybe for total comparisons, not for detailed with the pie charts, but a combination of those. If we could submit those to Danny or request those to be presented, I think that would be a good resource.
Yeah, I think bar graphs, or just a plain graph of certain things is useful, as long as there's enough data on that to make it meaningful. Some of our bar graphs have just had 1 year on them, or 2 years.
Right.
And that
No,
doesn't
I mean,
tell
it
you a
isn't-
lot.
You're right. It doesn't. No.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do some kind of a comparison, but I'd rather see a pie chart for the single years and then for the totals comparing year to year, a bar graph.
So I just want to, just for kicks, point out that in 2017, 2018, the actual expenditures for legal, or this was 15 to 16, were $26,000, and the budget was $16,000 going forward. So just kind of interesting,
A lot going on that year.
I guess.
Well, thank you guys for the feedback on that. You're welcome to look.
Well,
at
and
my
back in the old
audit.
days,
Well,
when Richard Platts was our attorney, he attended every single council meeting.
Wow.
we have 15 more minutes. Any more comment from the public on the financial or 2025, 2026 budgets? All right. Do you guys mind if we
Was that?
go ahead, Bobby? Yes.
Thank you, it was a relatively substantive discussion and interesting to listen to.
Thank you for coming. Do you guys mind if we close out the workshop and move on to the next agenda item?
Do we have,
Do you have another one?
do we have everything we want to
Um,
say about the budget thing?
Yeah, if there's another agenda item, I apologize.
I think there's another agenda item, I guess.
I
so-
think I'm good.
Well,
with
we
the
just
Oh,
have-
well, we just have two more
Okay.
things on the agenda, and it's supposed to close at 10. You said 10 o'clock, hard.
Well, that's for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have a quorum, so.
Okay. Oh, I thought we had the original agenda I looked at had a 10 o'clock stop date, I thought.
It did list 8 to 10, I thought.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I should adhere to that.
Okay. So, moving on to the next agenda item, unless anyone has further comment before I close it out.
Listen, yes, I may, I'll say it, I hear you guys go first.
We'll go ahead and close out this workshop session. Moving on to future agenda items, the council, I'd prefer if there were any future agenda items, they were focused on the budget and nothing else at this time, because I don't want the community to think that this was meant for anything else other than to discuss the budget.
All right, well, then I think we should have a future agenda item to detail the things that we're wanting for our 25, 26 budget, the types of presentations and everything Kat wrote down.
Yeah, like formatting requests for
Yeah,
presentation.
yeah, and whatever, all of it, the longer forecasting,
Well, let me get all that down and keep going.
yeah. Well, I think Kat's put, well, we all contribute in lots of ways. But I think that Kat's kind of broken this topic down in a way that the rest of us probably haven't. I know I haven't.
Want the checklists. I tend to take one item and plunge down, and I love a checklist because it's usually a logical sequence and
Mhm.
brings to mind things that you don't, it's a process that others have already suffered to get to
Yeah,
that point.
yeah. So do you feel comfortable kind of compiling to bring to the next meeting?
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
And I think that agenda item should, well, and we don't have to say ad hoc formation in an agenda item. We can just do it as part of that agenda item. But that might be something that we use to work with staff more closely.
Does the public have any input on future agenda items? I'm not gonna prevent you guys from not, you guys can bring anything forward. I think if you have a future agenda item you want to bring forward, I'm not going
Well,
to
of course,
exclude
John,
that.
we have
Okay,
a future agenda item.
sure.
May I, before you go,
Please,
sir,
please,
one
go
quick
ahead,
question?
yeah.
Thank you. So I will compile these notes from the takeaways that you guys have put in, and I do want to hear from the public if they have an item to incorporate into that. Is that correct? When I do so, can I send that to the mayor and the city manager, or?
I think that'd be fine, yeah.
And that'll go into our next agenda, our next packet with that agenda item.
Thank you, I just wanted to get that clear. Thanks. Email to mayor.
So it'll be part of the next packet.
Okay.
You have two issues that has this community highly stressed, I would say, from Wednesday night's meeting at the Granny Con that you attended.
Do you,
Do you,
if you can make it an item, I
I would like,
Sure.
I have two items,
sure.
state fines,
Mhm.
the city manager's employment. Those are two stressful items that this community is dealing with now. This Blue Lake is dealing with now. If you don't deal with the former of those, the state fines, all of this is not even academic. This is a waste of time, because that will wipe us out within 2-3 months. $300,000 a month. You guys have the budget in your hands. Look at what that means. $300,000 a month. You have, and what I would suggest, a couple ways, you have various ways to deal with it. If you wait until the meeting on the 27th, it's too close to the time limit, and it's too long to let it stew. Okay, so hold another meeting, like next Tuesday a week, okay? And just let it be a special meeting. You can save the vote. The vote will come on the 27th in time to get the issue resolved before the vote is before that.
I've got it on the agenda. I mean, I've got it as a future agenda item, I should say.
Okay, yes, you have that.
Thank you.
But I think that if you put it in a regular meeting, it could be overwhelming.
Okay.
Okay, whereas if you do it that specific, you come, you deal with it, it keeps the whole thing shorter and cleaner.
Great.
And the people, the citizens of Blue Lake will feel appreciative that they can come here. And if your vote can't be binding at that meeting, but you can give us your pledge, we're gonna be safe from that state fine. And as for the city manager, John, you were there, you saw Merrick Garland's response to that.
Alex, if you can just encapsulate what you want, please. I apologize.
I want a public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have the time issue that the state fines do, but on the council's intent, and I don't want public.
I'm talking about the other item, the city manager employment. That's something.
Yes, yes, I tell you what, let's even make it more, the relationship between the city council and the city manager, as it stands now. And I am going to ask the city manager if he will allow her evaluation to be made public. It's her choice. I will ask her that.
Alex, I want you to take it to City Hall if you would, just because I know there's legal issues involved with that. I'll bring it forward too, but I'm just concerned because it has to do with employment, and I don't have any city staff here and an attorney, so I'm just like,
I absolutely understand.
okay,
But the individual employee can choose to make her evaluation public. It is her choice, not the council's.
okay.
Okay? So that is what I'm going with. That's fine by me. But even without that clarification between your relationship and how you are going to exercise your power in that relationship is crucial. And another volatile issue in which
I think we've encapsulated what you're requesting. So I think we can move forward with that as a,
Thank you, John.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comment or any future agenda items?
I was looking at that TV.
Great. And then Alex, I apologize again. I said I was short on sleep, and you had a question on future council correspondence.
No, Bobby asked that earlier. You guys responded, you're not going there today on the message. What the letter from the state, housing welfare, or whatever that state department's called.
I don't feel comfortable doing that today. I mean,
That's fine. I understand that. I'm not asking any of that.
okay, great. Well, I think we can get a motion to adjourn if everyone
So moved.
wants to.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's closed.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do hope.
What was that, Alex?